Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
You know, host is a big word. I don't feel like a host.
It's a four-letter word, Mike.
We do like nothing here. Brian does everything. He brings the whole
I know.
sound together.
All we do is come and chit-chat.
That's it.
I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I love having coffee with you. I always love jumping in the sober coffee shop. And I love exploring sobriety and walking the sober path. And, you know, our goal and objective when we started out, when we first went out to dinner and talked about this, it was to help one person. And I think we're up to 4 or 5. Including you and me.
Well, what about my mom? What about my mom? She's a big listener.
Your mom is focused, man. She hits that play button all day long, doesn't she?
That's right.
She's so proud to push that play button. It's awesome.
Hey, guess what we got today? You know
What do
it.
we have?
You know it.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead. Are you
just
ready?
know it.
Are you ready?
When you tee it up like that, I know it.
Table for 3.
I know we got that special table in the corner for 3.
I should learn how to say that in Spanish.
Well, we do have Spanish listeners.
Okay. Well, then we need to brush up on
we
our
have listeners
Espanol.
from the UK. We have Spanish. We have India, Australia, New Zealand. We have all over.
All right.
Crazy,
beautiful.
crazy
Well,
stuff.
Today we got a table for 3.
Sobriety all over.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. You want to take a guess at who it is? I'll give
No.
you 2 guesses.
No, I'll
If
be
you
wrong.
say women for sobriety, you're going to be right.
That was
That was a
That was
hint.
my second guess.
All right.
That was my second guess. I would have been almost right.
Yeah. So what?
Women for sobriety. That's awesome.
Yeah. So remember we talked at the turn of the year and we said, you know, AA is great and it's worked great for us, but there are other programs out there. And we thought it'd be the smart thing to do to introduce those other programs the best we can to our coffee mates and let them know that there's alternatives.
Yeah, so that kind of stems from just being active on social media, right? We have several social media. We have Instagram, Twitter. We got Stay Sober Today, and there's a lot of conversation about what works and what doesn't work, right? And hey, I've tried things that have worked. I've tried things that haven't worked, and people get really passionate about it. And you and I sat down and a little behind the counter, we sat down and hey, we have a 12-step program that's worked for us, right? And you can't dispute those facts.
Right.
And you know, when people say, well, that doesn't work, well, I know that's not true because factually it's worked for you and I, right? Miraculous, miracles, right? But we committed that we are pro-sobriety.
Right.
We don't care how people get there, right? We're not saying, you know, it's one way or the highway. That is not what we're about. We are, you know, very welcoming, inclusive. If anybody wants to get in that sober path, we want to help in one way or another.
And I think they're going to get some help today. Adrian, how are you?
I love that. Hi, Adrian.
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for teaching your listeners about all the different pathways to recovery. It's so important, and it's something I'm really passionate about.
It's really important, and I'm looking forward. I am not a member of Women for Sobriety.
I know they didn't accept your membership, did they?
No, but they accepted yours, didn't they?
Well, they did. Michelle.
So we obviously don't qualify, Adrian, but welcome. We are really looking forward. We have polled our audience, and we're in the 55% range for women. So you certainly have an audience here. You know, and we're looking forward to hearing more about Women for Sobriety. And thanks for joining us.
Again, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us, give us a little background on Women for Sobriety. How long has it been around? How long you've been involved? You're president and CEO, and yeah. So tell us a little bit about its history and what brought you to be so involved.
And if you don't mind, just dive in a little bit about your story too.
Great, sure. Well, Women for Sobriety has been around longer than I have. It was founded in 1975, actually, by a pioneer in gender-specific programming. Her name was Jean Kirkpatrick. She was a PhD in sociology. And as she was exploring her sober journey, she she started to think, hey, women and men are pretty different in our society, raised pretty differently. And, maybe recovery rates are a little bit lower for women, which they were at that time. She said maybe that's because, they're not getting their gender-specific needs addressed. And so she created this organization to address women's specific needs in recovery. She was pretty amazing. She's kind of my hero. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet her, but so that came about in like 1975. And so she created this program that is based on 13 acceptance statements, which are really designed to just help women increase their self-esteem, their self-worth, and their self-efficacy. So their belief that they can manage their lives effectively. So I found Women for Sobriety in 2009, and I was, a little bit about me, I was in medical school at the time, and I was actually doing an undergraduate program at the medical school. And a month before graduation, the head of my program came to me and said, we may or may not be awarding you your degree. And I had had a panic attack with a patient in the room, and it was not a good scene. And so at that moment, I saw myself as having two options. And one option was to go to a bridge and jump off. And the other option was to go into the hospital and get into a safe space. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I chose the hospital, which I'm very happy about.
We are too.
And at the hospital, they said, gosh, Adrienne, you are really drinking a lot and smoking a lot of marijuana. And gosh, you've started doing some other drugs again recently. And maybe that's part of why you're having such a hard time in school. And I thought, that couldn't be right, surely. But I did get referred to treatment, and I did, look up some of my recovery options, and I found Women for Sobriety. And reading through the statements really spoke to me, The one I think that spoke to me the most was happiness is a habit I am developing. And I thought, if I can be happy in sobriety, because of course, like most of us, sobriety sounded like the worst thing in the world.
Oh, right? You've taken all the joy right out of life.
Exactly. Like, I can't get sober. That would be terrible, and I already hate my life enough. But this program showed me, like, happiness, I could reach out and grab it. I could develop a habit of being happy, and I could take control of my life in that way. Mm-hmm. And so I really liked that. And you know how some people find their recovery program and they dive right in and it all falls into place. That did not happen for me. I spent another 9 months in a knockdown, drag-out fight with my addiction, getting some sober days, some not so sober days, in and out of IOP. I ended up back in the hospital at one point because I didn't buy enough alcohol to get me to pass out. So again, it was 3 a.m., not quite drunk enough to sleep, and saw that same choice. Then I finally went to inpatient treatment and finally took my last drink in February of 2010. So I've been sober since then. I just celebrated 12 years of continuous
Congratulations.
sobriety.
It's fantastic.
Oh, that's outstanding, Adrienne.
Thank you. And, I no longer view the bridge as a choice. Luckily, that went
Thank
away.
goodness.
Yeah, right.
And through the New Life program, I really, of course, I had to look at a lot of things in my life, a lot of my childhood trauma that I had been through. And
So there's an inventory taking process, much like with Alcoholics Anonymous, yes?
we don't put it in an inventory framework, but we do definitely. I mean, we have to look at that, right? we have exercises to help us look at like our thoughts, our negative thoughts. One of our statements is negative thoughts destroy only myself. So we start to really look at, okay, what are the thoughts that I'm having? How are they productive? How are they not? Where are those thoughts coming from? Who gave me this story? How do I retrain that? Right. So it's a different way. We don't sit down and write down everything, but as we kind of get more conscientious about our thinking, we start to unpack a lot of those things that we've been carrying with us for a long time.
Do you work in groups, or is this more of an individualized program?
So this program, Dr. Kirkpatrick recognized that we may never get as big as some other programs, and so she specifically designed it so it could be worked individually or in groups. So we do have groups. Most of them meet once a week. We have a bunch of online meetings now. Well, we've had online meetings since 1997. So we have online groups for if you don't have a local meeting in your area, or we have local meetings wherever we have a volunteer to run a meeting, that's where we have a meeting.
Oh, that's great. And are they geographically on the West Coast? Are they everywhere?
They're pretty much everywhere. We actually started in Pennsylvania and on the East Coast, so they're a little more concentrated on the East Coast. We have quite a few in Canada, and we have one in an expat community in Mexico. So kind of all over North America.
Yeah, so I'm just looking online right now from a meeting perspective. There's several in Chicago. And yeah, I grew up in Philly, so I just pulled up to Philly, and there's a ton in Philadelphia and New York. So what does a meeting look like?
So our meetings, they open with reading the statements, of course, because that is the core of our program. So we read the statements, and we might read the mission statement, or we have our founding principles document that people might read that just kind of gives a little bit of an overview of what WFS is and why it was founded. And then we introduce ourselves. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. And in WFS, we really focus on what we want to have rather than on, our drinking life or any of that. So we introduce ourselves when I introduce
the Drunkalogs.
Yeah, when I introduce myself in a meeting, I introduce myself as a competent woman. So my name is Adrienne. I'm a competent woman. Some meetings will, you can use any adjective, any positive adjective. But my meeting, when I got brought up in recovery, was I'm a competent woman. So that's what I use. And then we report something positive that we did in the last week and relate it to one of the statements. So everyone gets a chance to do that. And then usually a topic is introduced. Something from our mailing list. We have a Monday Thoughts email that goes out that gives people something to talk about, or one of our statements and our program booklet, or some topic will be read or brought up, and then we have a discussion format. So there's a lot of back and forth and building on other people's ideas and sharing in that way. And then we end by. Well, we used to end by holding hands in a circle. Not a lot of groups are doing that these days.
Right.
But we'll circle up and we close with our motto, which is we are capable and competent, caring and compassionate, always willing to help another, bonded together in overcoming our addiction. And that's kind of the basics.
Yeah, it was right before that you said those. I wrote those attributes down. I got them from the website. Capable, competent, caring, and compassionate.
You can't go wrong with that.
No way, man. That's awesome.
You really can't. And we often call ourselves 4C women because we are those four things. And they all start with C.
So I have to ask this. There's no men. No.
No. There are some Men for Sobriety meetings. There was a little offshoot in the 80s. Some men were interested. They were like, hey, these things are great. I want to do these.
We're feeling left out.
Right? So there's a couple in Canada, and there's a couple at treatment centers, but it never really took off the way that Women for Sobriety did. But
Well, it's been working for you since February 2010, so that says a lot.
yes, and I think it was working within me before that as well. I just wasn't sober yet.
Right.
But I think there was
like how you
still a
put
lot
that.
of growth in that period.
It was working for me before I was sober. I like that.
Yeah. I liked your little saying that you said you and alcohol and drugs went and did what for a year? You said went to battle or
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what I said, but we had like a knockdown, drag out fight.
yeah, that's it. Yeah. And but look who won.
Yes, and those 9 months of being in and out of sobriety, I think were really important, right? Because I am like 100% convinced at this point that alcohol and drugs don't hold anything for me. And I think that as painful as that process was, and as difficult as it probably was for the other women in the program to watch, I think it was absolutely necessary because I learned by doing. And I think the only way I could really truly learn that I was done with alcohol and drugs was to test those waters and fail and end up right back where I started from.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So talk to the newcomer, the nice lady that's listening to us. Talk to the newcomer and tell them what they should do next.
So the first place to start, the best place to start is to go to womenforsobriety.org. And that's our main informational website. And you can print up the statements there. To get started in our program is super easy. Print up the statements and read through them each day. And each day you're going to pick one to work on by itself. And it can be any of them that you want. It could be the one you hate the most. It could be the one you like the most. Whatever. And you just work with it throughout the day. And you try to remember to think of it throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, you just reflect. Like, how did that affect my day? So maybe I'm working on statement 2, negative thoughts destroy only myself. And throughout the day, I remind myself, oh, what is the negative thought I'm having right now? And can I make that a more positive thought? Right. And to just really consciously use these each day. And that's really the basis of our program. You can also look up on womenforsobriety.org if there's meetings in your area, or if there's not meetings in your area, or if you just prefer to go to meetings online, which a lot of women do. We have our wfsonline.org, and that is our members-only website. So you have to register so that we can kick the men out. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, right. It's a gatekeeper.
A lot of men showing up looking for a nice, sober lady. I got to tell you, that is not an unusual situation on our site.
I understand that.
Hey,
Mikey, stop it.
Yeah, just so you know, my wife looked for a nice, sober guy for 40 years, so she finally got one.
Well, good. And that's fine. Sober dating is great, but that's not what our community is for. You do have to register for it, but then you can look at the meeting schedule. We have 2 to 5 meetings every day. Some of them are text chat, so it's just typing, which is great for women who have little ears in the room, who don't want to speak out loud. And you can do that on a Zoom meeting as well. Most of our meetings now are Zoom meetings.
Wow, that's great, using the technology of text to allow people to still communicate, even if, right?
Yes, yeah. And in fact, our first online meeting was in 1997 using an AOL chat room.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I'm on the acceptance statements right now. I love them. There's 13 of them. I can relate to all of them. A lot of it's about thought process and positivity, getting rid of negativity, negative thinking, thoughts. I call head trash. And we should put those up in the resource room, Mikey.
Yeah. All right, well, we're definitely going to put links in there to what's the best website then, the womenforsobriety.org?
That's the best one, yes.
Okay.
Because you can find wfsonline.org from there as well. Yeah, that's our main public website.
Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
Keep at it, and whatever works, right? I think a lot of women do 12-step plus Women for Sobriety, or they do Smart Recovery and Women for Sobriety, or they do Dharma Recovery and Women for Sobriety. Keep at it and use whatever works to help support your sobriety, because it's worth it and you're worth it, and it can even be a happy experience.
I'll vouch for that. Very nice. Thank you, Adrienne, for jumping in and joining us for outlining Women for Sobriety. I love those acceptance statements. Let's put those up in the resource room.
Absolutely. Adrienne, thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Adrienne.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you soon.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.